Welcome, sleepwalkers. I am your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. I first met Emily at an art exhibit downtown Boston. She was standing near a painting that made me uneasy, an image of a faceless girl pressing her palms against a cracked mirror. When she noticed me staring too long, she tilted her head with a sly grin. "You like it?" she asked, her gray eyes locking onto mine. "I don't know if like is the word," I admitted. "It feels like it's watching me." "That's the point," she said simply. That was Emily. Strange, magnetic, and impossible to walk away from. Within weeks, we were inseparable. And within months, she had moved into my apartment. At first, living with her was thrilling. She painted through the nights, always insisting darkness was the only time she could hear clearly. She had a way of saying things that made you feel there was a hidden meaning just out of reach. I didn't push. She was an artist, and artists were eccentric. But then came the first incident. One Friday evening, my buddy Mark stopped by. Mark had been my college roommate, loud, sarcastic, the type of guy who laughed off ghost stories and horror movies. We ordered pizza, cracked open beers, and caught up while Emily worked in the other room. At some point, Mark froze mid-sentence, staring at a canvas propped against the wall. "Dan," he said slowly, "isn't that your staircase?" I glanced at the painting. Sure enough, Emily had painted a girl with hollow white eyes sitting halfway up the staircase of our apartment building. The same chipped railing, same peeling paint, every detail exact. I forced a laugh. She probably used it as inspiration. She's lived here long enough. But Mark didn't laugh. He leaned in closer. "That girl, she looks like Emily." I stepped forward, my stomach tightening. The figure did look like her. Her long dark hair, her sharp cheekbones, even the small beauty mark on her upper lip. Only the eyes were wrong. I shook it off. Artists do weird things, man. That night after Mark left, I asked Emily about it. She shrugged casually. "I just paint what I see." The way she said it unsettled me. A week later, things escalated. I woke up at exactly 3:07 a.m. to the sound of whispering. Emily's side of the bed was empty. I found her in the living room, hunched over a new canvas. The hallway of our apartment was taking shape under her brushstrokes. Our hallway, with its flickering light bulb and scuffed walls. But what stopped me cold was the shadow. A long, dark silhouette stretched across the hallway in the painting, reaching toward a door. Our bedroom door. "Emily," I whispered, my voice shaky. She didn't look at me. Her brush moved faster, almost violently. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. At that, she froze. Her shoulders stiffened, and she turned her head slowly toward me. Her face was pale, her eyes glazed. "They're already here," she whispered. Before I could react, she dropped the brush, walked past me, and shut herself in the bedroom. I stared at the canvas. I swear to God, the shadow in the painting had shifted, closer to the door than when I first looked. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. When I pressed her, she laughed it off, blaming exhaustion. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. That afternoon, while Emily napped, I scrolled through my phone and noticed a missed call from an unknown number. When I called back, a deep voice answered. "Daniel Carter?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is Adrian Cole. Emily once gave me your number, told me to call if things started to change." "Professor Cole?" I asked. I remembered Emily mentioning him, an old art mentor she studied under. He sighed heavily. "Tell me, has she started painting places she shouldn't know? Faces she couldn't have seen?" My throat tightened. "Are you?" "Yes." "Then you need to listen to me. Don't let her finish tea. If a painting is completed, it becomes an invitation. An invitation to what?" But the line went dead. When I confronted Emily about it, she waved it off with a laugh. Adrian's obsessed with occult symbols and art. He probably thinks I'm possessed or something. Don't take him seriously. She kissed me, told me she loved me, and went back to painting. But that night at 3:07 again, I woke to the sound of two voices. One was Emily's, the other was a man's, low, rasping, and not coming from her. The next few days blurred together. Emily seemed distant, distracted. She painted nonstop, hardly eating. The apartment grew colder, draftier, even though the heating was fine. Sometimes in the corner of my vision, I thought I saw movement in the mirrors, shadows slipping by, faces half-formed. Mark came over again on Wednesday night. He walked into the living room, saw Emily's latest canvas, and his face drained of color. "Dan," he whispered, "that's me." I looked closer. The painting was of a man standing in our kitchen, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. The face was undeniably Mark's, but the eyes were gouged out, nothing but dark hollows. I turned to Emily, furious. "Why would you paint this?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the painting, her lips moving silently, like she was repeating something only she could hear. Mark grabbed his jacket and muttered, "I'm not coming back here again." When he left, I stood in front of the canvas. I could swear the painted Mark was smiling now, just faintly, cruelly, as if he knew something I didn't. That night, Emily locked the studio door. I pressed my ear against it, listening. Her voice whispered, broken, pleading. Then another voice responded, deeper, guttural. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Emily wasn't leading the conversation. She was being given instructions. I wanted to burst in, but something in me froze. The shadows along the hallway walls stretched longer than they should have, bending toward the door. And when the whisper stopped, silence fell so heavily it felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. That was when I realized this wasn't Emily's art anymore. It was something else, using her hands. The next morning, I couldn't shake the sound of that other voice. It lingered in my head like a song I couldn't forget. Emily was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, like nothing had happened. I watched her closely. The way her hand trembled when she lifted the cup. The way her eyes seemed to dart toward the corners of the room as if expecting something to be there. Finally, I asked, "Emily, who were you talking to last night?" She froze, cup hovering near her lips. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she forced a laugh. "Dan, you must have been dreaming. I was painting, that's all." But I knew she was lying. Later that day, I called Professor Cole again. To my surprise, he picked up on the first ring. "You shouldn't have ignored me, Mr. Carter," he said sharply. "Has she completed any of the paintings?" "Yes," I admitted. "A few." He cursed under his breath. "Then it's begun." "What's begun?" I demanded. He sighed heavily, as though deciding whether to tell me. Emily comes from a very old family in Maine. Her bloodline is tied to certain rituals, practices involving art as a medium of summoning. She may not even know the full truth herself, but her hands, they're guided. I felt cold. Guided by what? I can't say for certain, but once an image is finished, it acts as a door, and whatever's waiting on the other side, it wants through. I gripped the phone tightly. "So how do I stop it?" The professor's voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't, you run." Before I could respond, the line clicked dead. That night, I decided to test Emily. When she set up to paint, I unplugged the lamp in the living room, forcing her to work in near darkness. "Dan," she snapped, "plug it back in." "Why? You love the dark," I teased, trying to sound casual. Her jaw tightened. "I can't paint without light." "Or maybe you can't see them without it," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered. Anger, fear, something else. Without another word, she stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. When I checked the canvas, I wished I hadn't. It was our apartment building, but not as it looked. The windows were shattered, the sky above blackened, the hallways crawling with shadowy figures. And standing in the center of it all was me, eyes gouged out, mouth stretched open in a silent scream. The following weekend, I drove us to her hometown in Maine under the pretense of getting away. Emily didn't protest. In fact, she seemed almost relieved. Her childhood home was a crumbling colonial house at the edge of a forest. Its paint peeling, its windows like watching eyes. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and something older, dust, decay, and something metallic I couldn't place. "This is where I grew up," Emily said softly, running her hand along the banister. Her voice was different here, smaller. We stayed in what had once been her bedroom. Old sketches were still pinned to the walls. Dark figures, faceless women, twisting staircases. Even as a teenager, she'd been painting the same disturbing images. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard movement in the hall. When I peeked out, Emily was standing at the end of the corridor, staring into a cracked mirror mounted on the wall. Her reflection wasn't moving. I blinked hard, certain my eyes were playing tricks. But no, the real Emily lifted her hand, while her reflection stayed perfectly still. Then the reflection smiled. I slammed the door shut, heart racing. When I looked again, she was gone. The next day, I pressed her. "Emily, what's happening to you? What are you painting? What's following us?" Her face was pale, her lips trembling. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know, but I've seen them since I was a child. They tell me what to paint. If I don't, they whisper louder. They don't leave me alone until I do." "Who are they?" I demanded. Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know, but they've always been with me." I pulled her into my arms, but even as I held her, I felt a chill seep into my bones. Because in that moment, I realized she wasn't confessing. She was warning me. That evening, we went through some old boxes in the attic. Among stacks of yellowed papers and photographs, I found a diary belonging to her great-grandmother. The entries were frantic, filled with sketches of eyes and shadowed figures. One line repeated again and again. "The paintings are not mine. They use my hands." At the bottom of the last page, smeared in ink, were the words, "If I stop, they take me instead." I stared at it until the letters seemed to crawl across the page. When I looked up, Emily was gone. I found her back in her childhood room, painting furiously. The canvas showed the house itself, except it wasn't as it was now. It was burned, blackened, engulfed in flames. "Emily, stop!" I shouted, grabbing her wrist. She turned on me, eyes wild. "I can't. If I stop, they'll take me." "Then let them take me instead," I said before I could stop myself. Her expression shifted, softening. But only for a second. Then the lamp flickered, and the shadows in the corners of the room stretched toward us like reaching hands. Emily dropped the brush, gasping, and the canvas fell face first onto the floor. The room went silent. And then, faintly, a whisper echoed through the house. Low, guttural, and not human. "Finish it." That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the door, listening to the creaks of the old house, the faint scurrying in the walls, the restless whispering that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Emily lay beside me, trembling in her sleep, muttering words I couldn't understand. When I finally closed my eyes near dawn, I dreamed of the painting, of the house in flames. And in the window, I saw Emily, her face blank, her eyes gouged out. When I woke, her side of the bed was empty, and the smell of smoke hung faintly in the air. When I woke, Emily wasn't in bed. The faint smell of smoke clung to the air like a warning. My chest tightened as I hurried through the hall, calling her name. I found her in the living room, staring at the fireplace. She hadn't lit it. Ashes lay cold and gray, but the smell of burning wood was strongest here. "What are you doing?" I asked cautiously. Her eyes flicked to me. "They showed me something," she whispered. "The house, burning. The flames. They said it's the only way to end this." The words sent a chill through me. "Emily, you can't listen to them. They're not real." She gave me a look I'll never forget. "They're more real than either of us." Later that day, while Emily slept, I searched the attic again. Among the rotting boxes and dust-coated books, I found a stack of rolled canvases, hidden beneath a loose board in the floor. I unrolled one. It was a painting of a girl at the foot of the staircase, young, terrified, her hands clutching her face. At first, I thought it was Emily. But then I noticed the clothing, dated, from another era. Her great-grandmother. The next canvas showed the same girl years later, painting at an easel. Behind her loomed dark figures, faceless and tall, their hands resting on her shoulders. My hands shook as I unrolled the last one. It was Emily, painted exactly as she was now. Same age, same eyes, but she was sitting inside a burning house. The same house we were standing in. The whisper returned, curling through the attic like, "Finish it." I bolted downstairs, my heart hammering. That night I confronted her. "Emily, your family has been through this before. Your great-grandmother, she saw them too. She painted them." Her face went pale. "How do you know that?" "I found the canvases. They've been haunting your bloodline for generations." She shook her head violently. No, they chose me. Not her, not anyone else. Just me." I grabbed her shoulders. "Then let's leave. Let's burn these paintings. Burn the house if we have to. But we can't stay here." She stared at me for a long moment, then whispered, "If we destroy them, they'll come for us instead." Before I could reply, the lights flickered. The air grew icy cold, our breath fogging in the dark. And then faintly, footsteps creaked across the upstairs hall. But we were the only two in the house. We followed the sound. Slowly, together, we climbed the staircase. Every step groaned under our weight. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally long against the walls. At the top of the stairs, the cracked mirror glimmered faintly in the dark. This time, when I looked, I saw us both reflected, but not as we were. In the reflection, Emily's eyes were gouged out, her mouth open in a silent scream. My own body hung lifeless from the ceiling behind her, a rope around my neck. I stumbled back. "Emily, don't look." But she had already seen it. Her face crumpled, her body shaking violently. "It's already decided," she whispered. Then the mirror cracked, the sound sharp like a gunshot. We rushed back to the bedroom, slamming the door shut. I pushed a dresser against it, though I wasn't sure what good that would do. Emily sat on the floor, rocking back and forth, muttering under her breath. I knelt beside her. "Emily, listen to me. We can leave this place. Tonight. Right now." She shook her head. "It won't matter. They'll follow. They always follow. ... And fight them," I snapped. "Don't let them use you." Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a second I saw the Emily I knew. The girl who had smiled at me in that Boston gallery, who had kissed me on cold mornings before work, who had laughed at my bad jokes. But then her gaze drifted past me, into the dark corner of the room. Her expression hardened. "They don't want me anymore," she whispered. A shiver ran through me. "What do you mean?" "They want you." That night blurred into chaos. The whispers grew louder, filling the house, pressing into my ears, until I thought my skull would split. Shadows moved on their own, crawling along the walls like living things. The paintings we'd found in the attic were no longer still. The figures within them shifted, reaching, their eyes gleaming faintly from the canvas. I tried to drag Emily out of the house, but she fought me, screaming that I didn't understand, that leaving would only make it worse. We stumbled into the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. One of Emily's unfinished canvases sat on the counter, but now it was complete. It showed me standing in that very kitchen, except my body was twisted, broken, sprawled on the floor in a pool of blood. The paint glistened wet. I backed away, my throat dry. "Emily, did you finish this?" She shook her head slowly. "I didn't. They did." The air grew thick with smoke, though no fire burned. My vision blurred. My chest heavy, as if the house itself was suffocating me. Through the haze, I saw the figures. Not on the canvas this time, but in the room. Tall, faceless, their limbs unnaturally long, their heads cocked to one side like broken dolls. Emily screamed. I grabbed her hand, but it was cold. So cold it burned. And then, as quickly as it started, everything went black. When I woke, I was lying on the floor of the living room. The house was silent, still. Emily was gone. I searched every room, every corner, even the woodzo, but there was no trace of her. Only her paintings remained, dozens of them scattered across the floors and walls. Each one showed the same image, me. Always me. Sometimes alive, sometimes dead. Sometimes screaming, sometimes reaching. And in every painting, without fail, the same words were scratched into the bottom corner in jagged handwriting. Finish it. The house was too quiet. Every clock had stopped ticking. Every draft of air was gone. And yet the smell of smoke clung to everything. Emily's paintings littered the floor like scattered corpses, each canvas staring back at me with my own face twisted in ways I couldn't bear to look at for long. I called her name until my throat burned. "Emily, Emily." No answer. I stumbled through the house, room to room, praying she had simply run outside, that she was hiding in the woods, that this nightmare was still one I could wake from. But all I found were canvases, more than I remembered. Some weren't even finished, yet they carried my likeness, as if invisible hands had been working while I was unconscious. On the dining table, one painting caught my eye. It showed me sitting in this very house, surrounded by canvases, calling out for Emily, exactly as I was now. My stomach twisted. It wasn't a painting of the past or the future. It was happening in real time. Desperate, I grabbed my phone. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. No service, of course. But when I opened the gallery, I froze. Every photo was gone, replaced by images of the canvases. Not pictures I'd taken, but perfect photographs of the paintings themselves, each one more gruesome than the last. And in the newest image, I wasn't alone. Emily stood behind me, her face blurred, her hands clutching my shoulders. I spun around. The room was empty. By midnight, the whispers returned. Louder this time. No longer hiding in corners, but filling the house like a chorus of unseen voices. Finish it. The words pulsed in my skull, over and over, until I thought I'd go mad. I staggered into the living room where the largest canvas stood on the easel. A blank one. The brush lay beside it, waiting. I don't know what compelled me, but I picked it up. My hand moved without thought, without will. Lines took shape, the outline of the house, the staircase, the cracked mirror upstairs. My body screamed to stop, but my hand obeyed something else. Something older. When the first shadowy figure appeared on the canvas, I dropped the brush. My breathing came ragged, my chest tight. And then I heard her voice. Dan. Soft, familiar, Emily's voice. I turned, and there she was, standing in the doorway. Her eyes glistened, her hair a mess, her skin pale as wax. But she was smiling. Emily. My knees nearly buckled with relief. She stepped closer. It's okay. I know what to do now. If you help me finish the painting, it'll be over. I shook my head violently. No, that's what they want. The professor said, her expression hardened. Professor Cole doesn't understand. They don't want to hurt us, Dan. They want us with them." Her voice was sweet, calm, but there was something underneath, an echo that didn't belong. "Emily, what did they do to you?" She tilted her head, her smile widening. "They showed me the truth. Don't fight it anymore. Pick up the brush." I backed away, heart pounding. The room felt smaller, the shadows thicker, pressing against me. Her eyes darkened. And for the first time since I'd met her, I realized Emily wasn't standing there. Not really. Something else was wearing her face. I bolted for the door. The night air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp. The woods stretched endlessly, every tree a black skeleton clawing at the sky. I ran. I don't know how long. Minutes, hours, but no matter which direction I chose, I always ended up back at the house. Its burned, blackened outline flickered faintly in the dark, as though it already existed in two versions at once, one standing, one in ruin. And at the window, I saw Emily watching me, sometimes smiling, sometimes screaming. By dawn, I was broken, exhausted. I dragged myself back inside. The house was silent again. Too silent. I found the canvas waiting for me in the living room, now nearly finished. The painting showed the house in flames. The windows glowed orange, the roof collapsing. And in the center of it all, in the largest window, was me, my face twisted in agony, my mouth open in a scream. There was only one thing missing, the final brushstroke across my eyes. The brush lay on the floor, wet with fresh paint, but I hadn't touched it. I stumbled back, shaking my head, whispering to myself, "This isn't real. This isn't real." And then, faintly, I heard Emily's laugh. Not the warm laugh I loved, but a hollow, broken sound that seemed to come from every corner of the house. The canvases began to shake against the walls, one by one falling to the floor. And each time one landed, the figure of me inside them shifted, closer to death. Finally, the largest canvas tipped forward, crashing face first to the floor. When I flipped it over, the painting was complete. My eyes were gone. That was the last thing I remember before blacking out. When I woke, I was outside, sitting in my car. It was morning. The house stood behind me, untouched, not a trace of fire. No canvases, no whispers, no sign of Emily. The neighbors claimed the house had been empty for decades, abandoned since the 1950s. But I know what I saw. I drove away that morning, but I haven't escaped. Every night at 3:07 a.m., I wake to the sound of whispering. My apartment walls are bare, but when I glance at them in the dark, I sometimes see brushstrokes forming, lines etching themselves across the plaster. And in the center of the newest one, always, is me. Sometimes alive, sometimes not, but always unfinished. And the whisper follows me no matter where I go. Finish it. Emily's fate remains unknown. Was she taken, consumed, or did she become one of them? And was the house real, or simply a trap designed for me alone? I don't know. All I know is that the painting isn't finished. And one night, maybe soon, it will be.